Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Your Success with our franchise coach, Dan Olsen. How are you doing, Dan?
Oh, Marjorie, it's always a pleasure. It's so exciting to be with you and to share some experiences and stories and uh, awesome strategies for people to help them see if franchising is the right program for them.
And I bet it is. So, today we're going to be talking about one of the many benefits that we get from franchising, which is scalability. And I believe that that's the smart way to grow any type of business. So, first of all, what's scalability?
You see a lot of ads out there. People say, hey, we can help you scale your business. And you got to turn your business into something where there's a system so that you can scale it. And you can relieve a lot of your headaches in your business if you're able to scale your business. And obviously, you can't grow a huge business unless you're able to scale it and replicate it. And franchising actually has the one of the most successful ways of doing that because we've already created that system. That's why it is a franchise. There's a step-by-step process, step-by-step system that allows you to go from point A to point B to get the results within a certain range that you're seeking with that franchising. So when you're scaling something, you're systematizing it so that it can grow into something that's huge and bigger than you ever imagined.
And it's also generational because you can even inherit that into your descendants, your family, your friends, if you wanted to on your will. That's amazing. So we have two main types of scalability so far. The first one that it's retail by having multiple locations. But we want to know how you can manage that many locations as a business owner.
Yes. So the idea here is to if you are a single unit franchise owner that expands into multiple units, it's kind of hard to be a full-time person in a single unit and then be ready to expand to another one without having that management in place. So usually what happens when let's say you get up to 3 units and 3 locations, typically what you're going to have is you're going to hire maybe a general manager to kind of hop from different locations to read that reports back to you so you can still maintain your semi-absentee ownership and not be there full time unless you want to be, of course. Then obviously you can because it's your business. You have that choice. But the idea is to start identifying management to do that. Now, one of the simplest ways to do that I know of is, let's say as you're moving from one location to the second location, is identify a really key employee within that first franchise. And hopefully if you've done your job well and hired the right people, you'll identify that person that's ready to step up into maybe a little bit of management to help support you, to be more of your assistant. So now when you open up that location, you're free to go to this second location and allow that person to kind of take your spot. In fact, when you're not there, that person can actually go to the second location and help manage that. And the process just kind of repeats itself. These people end up rising to the top if you've done a good job in hiring people. But it's actually being able to leverage that. And what we find in a franchise is it's usually easier to hire someone of value, high value, because there is that structure. There is a culture that exists and they can usually adapt to that. Usually they're getting paid better because it's a franchise. There's cost savings to the owner because of that. So those additional income sometime can be passed on to the individual employees and help them really feel successful. Speaking about that too, I want to share a strategy that some franchisors use to keep their employees, because that's so important when you're ready to expand on the next one. And that is when you're starting out and you're thinking of this as just another job, you think, oh, I'm just going to hang out here for a little bit and this is a stepping stone and I'm going to go do this or do that, get to my next gig. But what smart franchise owners do and master franchisees and even franchisors do is they offer the ability for that employee to earn or own their own business, their own franchise. And the way they do that is work for a year, you get a $3,000 credit, $5,000 credit, whatever it is, toward a franchise fee of your own. Work another year, you get another $3,000 to $5,000. Work another year, you get another $3,000 to $5,000. So by the time you've got 3 years in and you have up to a $15,000 credit toward acquiring your own franchise, but if you leave, it's gone.
Oh.
So there's no getting that back. But if they're able to take the advantage of that credit and move forward and own their own business, and they've already been trained, they already know how, those usually are making some of the best franchisees to move forward with. In fact, Domino's Pizza is famous for that. You look, a lot of their employees started out as employees and they ended up becoming franchisees later and owning their own store because they had some type of, I'm not sure quite what it was, but they had some type of in-store program where you could earn that franchise and get help. They would help you get the financing and of course the training. And that's one of the ways that they opened up so many of them so quickly, is the ability for an employee to earn their own franchise.
And I feel like it's such a great incentive for your team to stay working hard on the franchise that you have, because they're like, I see my future in this company, and I truly believe that I can make it into becoming a franchise owner as well. That's what I love about franchises, because it gives so many opportunities to not only you as the owner of a franchise, but also the people that are working for you in your team. Now, another type of scalability that we have seen is the non-retail scalability, like by owning a territory. So how do we go about owning a whole territory? What are the steps?
Okay, so by owning a territory, oftentimes we refer to master franchising, and we've defined that previously, that master franchising, the proper term for that is in the agreements as area representative or regional developer. I kind of like that term, area representative, because that's kind of a newer term that's more popular now and is more solid in the agreements. And because area representative signifies partnership, and you become really more of a partner with that franchise or that franchise company, and you're just an extension of them. So what happens is you acquire the territory. Let's say it's the state of Oregon, or it's the city of Chicago, or whatever it is. You own that territory and you have the rights to then have the same rights as the franchisor to sell the franchises, to help service them, receive royalties, receive distribution incomes, and even set up your own locations. So as you have all these different options, you now have the ability to build something that's very, very special, with huge opportunities to exit out down the road, should you decide to do that. And so that's what I enjoy about the master franchise opportunity, is to do that. But here's the other thing that happens is, as a master franchisee, it's kind of like owning real estate. I mean, if you owned a piece of land that you were going to develop, and it's blank land, and you're planning on building some apartments or a home or whatever it is on there, you're starting to build up that territory or that piece of land that you have. It's the same thing here. If you own the state of Oklahoma, for example, and you were going to end up building franchises on that but the cool thing is, the franchisees are the one pitching in their funds and their ability and their experience to build that asset for you as a master franchise. So they're helping you build your piece of real estate. And so that allows you to sell that piece of real estate, that territory, at a huge increase when you're finished building it and you're ready to move on to the next thing. So you want to think of a master franchise as a territory as basically, it's kind of like real estate that you're acquiring.
Oh, gotcha. So it would be kind of like what McDonald's kind of does, that they own the territory where all the branches are being funded. But in this case, it would be actually a franchise owner, or a franchise owner who would be owning these different locations, kind of thing then.
Yeah. So the master franchisees own the real estate, and the single unit franchisees own the units.
Oh, gotcha.
Single units underneath that master franchisee. So it's just that two-tier approach to it, where a lot of franchise companies, in fact, most of them just have the two-tier approach, where it's the franchisor and the franchisee below them, where this is more of three tiers, because you've got the franchisor, you have the master franchisee, and the single unit franchisee.
And I feel like that's a great opportunity for all the people that are listening to us and that are interested in franchises, but more into the real estate aspect of it. So that's a great opportunity for them as well. Now, what about when you try to own multiple franchises? Because let's say that I want to start owning this Massage Envy franchise unit, and I also want to own a McDonald's unit. How do you go about managing different franchises from two different fields?
So that's a good question. The diversification you want to get to the point where we can have that diversification in a franchise because, as I've already mentioned, the success rate goes up. Their chances to succeed is way higher. So there's a couple different ways to diversify and own multiple units. Number one is within the brand itself. And so you own, let's say it's 3 dry cleaners of the same brand. Typically, you wouldn't own one brand of a dry cleaner and another brand of a dry cleaner because there's usually a conflict because it's a conflict of interest because of the similarities in the business. So you can't usually own one of the same brand. Usually, in the food situation, you might be able to own like a coffee shop would be one, like say the Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. That's food, but they may prohibit you from owning certain other types of coffee. But you certainly could own a frozen yogurt shop or ice cream shop because it's different enough from the donuts and the coffee that they're not going to interfere with each other in providing the revenue. So those usually sometimes make a good match. Food within food. And then you see a lot of businesses, let's say Taco Bell, they own Taco Bell and they own Subways, for example. So they own a lot of them within the same industry where you're providing more fast food, quick service, but different brands. And then they can utilize their management teams to do that. You might have specialists that are specifically trained to manage the sandwiches versus the tacos, how to put together tacos. And but the management, the account, there's advantages in doing that because your accounting is all be under one roof and it can be the same accountants, any legal, any insurance policies and other things like that. You can get lots of benefit by owning that. Then let's talk about different industries, owning different industries. Let's say that you own a sandwich shop, but you also now want to own a massage clinic. So you certainly can do that, but they're completely different. So there you may not have as many of the benefits because they're completely different industries and you may have to run them just as they are. And there may not be any crossover in the training portion of it as much as there would be if you're in your same industry. But certainly very valid and ideal to do that because most franchisees that are successful and have been around for a while own more than one unit, whether it's in their own brand or sometimes outside their own brand to diversify.
Gotcha. So can you tell us a few stories of you owning different franchises in different industries?
Yeah, let me think of that. In fact, here's a really good example. When I first started out, I knew a guy who he bought and there's a lot of examples of that. He bought the Fantastic Sam's hair salons rights for a certain area, and he started to have those salons developed. And so they started increasing. Then along comes another cool concept with direct mail advertising. So when you think about it, direct mail is was and still it can be is one of the chief ways to bring in new clients for hair salons. So why wouldn't you want to own the advertising media that's going to be bringing in new clients into your hair salon? So not only are you owning this hair salon, but now you own the media that's going to help drive those clients in there, and you profit off of that and other abilities. And so it's just kind of vertically integrated. It made a lot of sense in those days. That's one thing. And then the other thing that when you look at A&W and you look at KFC, at one time, and I think they still are owned by the same company. But what happens is when you put them together, you can have a lot of the same employees and you have a bigger menu. And therefore you can, what it showed is in most locations, not every location, is that they increased revenue significantly because they had the two brands under one roof, but yet they were still the same square footage. In other words, they didn't have to have a whole lot of extra space to house the two brands, yet they were all still under the same roof with increased revenue opportunities.
And on top of that, I feel like if we were to look at a franchise and two different franchises in two different industries, a good tip would be try to make sure that those two mesh well together so they can be like easier for you to implement later on. So what are some of the other benefits that you have seen with scalability in a franchise?
Well, when I think scalability, I think the ability to grow exponentially with systems already in place. So you have that system that's already in place, which makes it easier. So once you learn one system, that allows you to go to the next and open it up even faster because you've already got it down. Your employees have already got it down. And once, like we talked about, you can use your existing employees to go to the next one, the next one, and the next one because they already know it. And so it makes it much easier to scale. So because you have that franchise. But here's the big advantage is if you were to start that from scratch and you wanted to have, let's say that you opened up your own location of a food location. You started it from scratch and you're going to have a lot of painful experiences figuring out how to do it right and figuring this out and making sure it's right. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes typically. And hopefully you succeed and you're within that 20% success rate of new businesses that are not affiliated with franchises. So you start out and you start working it. And once you're successful and you do create that system, then that allows you to scale much easier onto the next and next and next, even if you're starting from scratch on your own. But what a franchise does is it gives you a shortcut. So you don't have to go figure all that stuff out. It's already figured out for you. And chances are there is already a franchise out there in the type of business you're already looking to start. And so you can just jump in and move forward at a much faster rate.
So what are some of the tips that you would say to us if we wanted to grow our franchise even faster?
So I'd be looking here. You want to start before you even acquire the franchise. And that's important because if the franchise is growing, the company's growing very, very fast, like we've had several of them, and you go into a city and you want to kind of stay in that same city, but there's already other franchisees there. And that's a good thing to have other franchises because now they can contribute to the advertising fund, which only boosts you and grows. So you got to look at it as properly balanced. So you don't want too many, but you want enough to kind of help you support you as well. Because if you have too many, let's say that there's only 30 franchises available in the city and there's already 25 of them open and then you jump in at the tail end, I want to get in on this. But even though you get in on it, everybody else wants to get in on it too. And so the existing franchisees will usually snap up the locations and there's only an opportunity for you to have one. So there's no opportunity to expand. But let's say there's potential of 30 in there and there's 5 already operating. Now you've got something because now there's 25 more. So either you come in very quickly and secure your rights with what we call a 2-pack or 3-pack. In other words, you buy multiple units right up front, 2 or 3 possible locations. So that way you reserve the right to be able to have your location and the real estate to support you. Or if you're just getting in with one single unit, you just got to make sure there's space for you to grow. Because if you don't have that space to grow, how are you going to do that? And so that's what some franchises have run across. There's no more space to grow within that brand, even though they love that brand. So that's another reason why they've stepped out and acquired another brand that's not competing so that they can jump in the area and continue to grow and scale their business with another brand.
That's great. And that's a really good tip, actually, because I feel like most people, they just see a brand and they're like, I love this brand, I'm just going to invest on them without taking a look at all the other, not competitors, but fellow franchisees that are going to be around you. But it's amazing that you can also count on their support. How have you seen having other franchises helped you drive more clients to your franchises?
Oh man, it's the old saying, the rising tide raises all ships in the harbor, right? So when you're involved with, if let's say, for example, it's like a fire. We've probably all sat around a campfire and seen the hot coals in there. When you have all those hot coals together, they stay hot for longer, right? Mm-hmm. And they give off more heat. But if you just have one little hot coal off to the side here, gradually just fizzles out much faster than being around the others. So the idea is if you've got a franchise over here in this location in your city, they're advertising, right? And then you got another one across the town, they're advertising. Another one to the south, they're advertising. Another one further east, they're advertising. And then you come along, they've already started to advertise and create the brand name and the awareness that you can now tag along on that brand awareness, so that when you start to advertise, there's a synergistic effect to the advertising. It allows your advertising dollar to go further and ability to expand much faster because that's already in the area. So it's a good thing to have a few in the area, and sometimes you may be the first and that's okay, but just be prepared to open up 2 or 3, and then you're the one that's going to be established in that area. So instead of getting for every dollar you spend on advertising, you're getting back in the beginning, maybe 2 or 3, which is still a great return. But once you have that advertising established in the area, it's more efficient. And so every dollar you spend, you might be getting back 5, 6, 7 in returns on clients.
That is great. And I feel like having a franchise, it's such a great opportunity for you to have a community of other franchisees that are helping you also succeed. Because besides the fact that they are doing their own marketing for their own little branch, they are also helping you with the marketing for your own branch. That's amazing. Such a great community to be like in a franchisee community, I guess. It's so helpful for sure.
It is.
And well, thank you so much again, Dan. It's so amazing to know more how we can grow our business through franchising. And we truly believe that that's the way to go. So I am sold. Thank you so much to all of you guys for listening to us, and stay tuned for our next episode.
All right.